Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project with Lalo and Bob. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let's jump right into that weekly dose of things you can disagree with. Take it away, guys.
And we are all right. We're on. Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. Had a great week. I don't. Did we do? We didn't go last week because I was out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried. I tried. I took everything down to LA and I set up in that hotel, and I think I had like 1 megabyte per second. So didn't even give it a try. I had a good weekend last weekend though. I went to see that concert, and I spent 3 days in LA just to spend 3 days in Koreatown and Tokyo, Little Tokyo, and uh, all that um, bad portion of Wilshire Boulevard. It was pretty cool, man.
I'm not too familiar with like LA when it comes to like what's where, you know?
Yeah.
Like if people tell me like, "Oh, I went here." And I'm like, I have no idea where that's at.
Well, I think Wilshire Boulevard runs east and west, and I was all the way on the east side of Wilshire, and it's actually very, very poverty stricken over there, and lots of graffiti, and it smells like piss, and it's it's a pretty rough part of town. It's over in the old district of Wilshire where the theaters were and all that shit. It's pretty cool though because there's lots and lots of Eastern culture over there.
Oh, okay. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's like there's Little Thailand, Little Tokyo, Chinatown. Um, there's all kinds of stuff going on over there. There's temples and Buddhist temples and lots and lots of homeless people, man, laying
Really?
on the fucking sidewalk. Like I don't know, man. I can't I can't understand what the hell is happening. Like at Foodland here in Bakersfield, man, there's people sleeping in the parking lot, and my wife's like, "Why don't they do something?" I'm like, "What can they do?" You know, because cops won't go for loitering anymore. They don't give a shit. So
I think yeah, cuz I mean when you look here in town, like the homeless issue is pretty bad.
yeah,
Um but like I can't even imagine what it's like in like LA. Like I just know it's like exponentially worse. And
have you been down to Venice?
um not recently, but I mean I've been there probably like a few years ago, and I
Yeah.
mean it was bad then, so I can't imagine being any better now, you know?
Right. Yeah. You know, when you get off the 405 and you make that left onto Venice Boulevard
Yeah.
and all the trees look like my kid used to call them broccoli trees. Once you get past that portion and get down to where you're going to turn up to go to the beach, the streets are lined with um,
Tense.
tents and Winnebagos and broken down vehicles. It's like lining the streets. And last year they cleaned it out a little bit, and I was down there probably 2 months ago, and it's right back to where it was, and it's awful, man. It's like I don't know. It looks like a third world country of people living on the streets and shit's boarded up and trash everywhere. People just passed out on the fucking sidewalk. So uh, what do you do, right?
I think homelessness is like probably one of, if not the hardest issue to solve um here at
Yeah,
least.
yeah,
Especially just as like how bad it is or how bad it's gotten. Like it's one of those things where I feel like we don't even know where to start. Um
yeah,
and we're just like trying to do like everything at the same time,
yeah.
and it's not working, you know. And I think the hardest part is it's one of those issues where people want like instant like return. like they want to see like instant improvement, you know.
Right.
And
Instant
the way,
results.
right,
It's
and the way homelessness is, that's very hard to do because you're dealing with like people, you know.
uh-huh.
And you're dealing with, and but you're not just dealing with like people, you know, that, you know, need a home. You're dealing with like people addicted to drugs, and, you know, people with mental illness, and those things, you don't treat those things overnight, you know.
And
You
people
know,
who have acclimated to living outside and they don't want to go
yeah,
back inside.
yeah, because I mean, I think I've said this before, like if you offer, you know, 10 people a home, 10 homeless people a home, I'd say like 8 or 9 out of 10 of those will tell you no thanks,
No
I'm
thanks.
good.
Yeah. And
And
then, yeah.
you know, it just makes you think like, oh well, you know, they're choosing to be homeless, and in a sense they are, but that doesn't make it um like right, you know.
Right.
We can't just like stop there and be like, oh well, they said no, so what can we do? Because a lot of times, like,
Yeah.
um
What
you know, like even working where I do now, like all of our like clients, like pretty much all of them, like when we first talk to them, they don't want anything, but you kind of have to like keep at it, and eventually, you know, um they do like engage, you know, in like
Yeah.
services, and, you know, eventually they do change their mind on like, you know, wanting something different for themselves. So it's like it takes time, it takes money, like a shit ton of money, um and those are just two things that I don't think a lot of people are like willing to do, you know, or willing to give give
Yeah.
up. um so yeah, it's very difficult to solve. There's no like one way to solve it. It kind of just depends on like the situation.
Yeah.
um
First, you have to identify why they ended up on the street and work from there, because I lost my job, or I'm addicted to drugs, or my family kicked me out. There's all kinds of issues that force you out into the street. And then when I worked in mental health with the homeless, you find out those sobering uh, developments of like 6 weeks on the street can take up to 2 years to erase. So people who live like animals become like an animal, and they don't trust you, and you have to earn their trust first. And it's this long ass battle of, you're finally going to get somebody off the street. You put them in there's that tiny house village in San Francisco, and it caught on fire. Of course it caught on fire because you got firebugs, and a lot of them among the homeless. So it's a situation you're just never, I guess it's always been there, but from the economy collapsing slowly like a house of cards, it's going to put more people in the street. Recession, you like you said, man, people don't, not only do they not want to um, keep throwing money at it when they can't see results, they can't anymore. So
yeah, I mean, it's like, to me sometimes I laugh because I'll see like posts about homelessness here in
yeah,
town, and like all the comments, um you know, of like, I mean, the comments vary in like what they say, but most of it is like, you know, negative.
yeah,
And a lot of them are like, you know, why can't we like do anything for them? Like what like services do we offer? And like me working directly with like homeless people, like in my head, I'm like, we have a shit ton of services, you know. Um, we have a lot of services that people don't even know exist.
right.
Um, but it, like I said, it's those things that like you're dealing with a human being. Like it can't, it's not simple when you're working with human beings.
Dude, it's not simple when you're working with a cat. When a group of cats goes feral, it becomes a problem and they make more cats. And then you got this huge issue where no one can approach the cat because they're all wild. And that's basically right down at the core of it. That's what's happening. These people were turned out into the street. You sleep behind a garbage can for a few weeks and tell me how you feel about life after that.
Have you heard about the Care Court program
No.
that's being introduced?
Now,
So
now what?
um, basically, Newsom signed this bill into law that it's called the Care Court. Um, and basically, what it is it allows people of the community to refer individuals. Mainly, it's geared towards homeless people to refer them for um, like services, whether it be like housing assistance or like mental health, like mental illness. Um, and then once they refer them, it's uh, it's like they go to court to determine whether they need those services, but it's up to the county and its service providers to make sure those individuals like go to the court hearings, and at the court hearings if it's determined that they do need services, then they kind of have to comply. um, like it becomes like mandated, and if they don't comply they're subject to conservatorship. um, it's it's a very like this is the definition of like gray area
Right.
when it comes to like um when it comes for me, like when it comes to like ethical boundaries. Like this is the definition of gray area to me, because you're pretty much mandating people um like services or get conserved. Like that's their option.
Right.
And I think it's one of those uh policies and laws and bills that's designed to kind of take like more swift action, because I mean politicians are feeling the pressure of people like wanting, like you said, those instant results.
Right.
And you can't just be like, okay, we'll just throw them in jail. you know
But that seems to be a way to go about just throwing them in jail.
right. I mean technically it's not jail, but you're being conserved.
Right.
um so it's like it's going to start with a few pilot counties. I don't think Kern is one of them. I think it's like Riverside and like LA and a few other ones.
Yeah, and I'm
But
sure in San Francisco too. So
yeah, but it will expand to all of California by 2024. Um, and like I said, it's it's very gray, but um, I would say that's more like I would say it does more good than harm. Um, like out of a on a 1 to 10 scale, I'd say that's like a 7.5 of like how good of an idea I think it is.
yeah.
But the way it's being executed, I think is very bad, because one, there's no there's no additional funding or there's no funding at all for the counties to like set up their like care court system. So it's up to the individual counties to make sure that they have a system in place for these individuals to make their court dates.
Oh my God.
And I mean, some counties like us, we have, where I work, my specific team, like it's almost like designed for that.
Right.
But not every county has my team. There's smaller counties, there's poorer counties that aren't really equipped or designed to do these things. And the part that worries um, other counties is that they get fined if they don't um, Like if these people miss their court dates, they get fined like $1,000 per day per person. And I mean, I can imagine that can add up, you know. So I think the state should have had a better way of like implementing it when it comes to like a system in place to, you know, get these people to court dates. Or
Yeah.
because I mean, if you've ever worked with homeless people, you know that it's very hard to like establish like plans ahead of time,
Yeah,
because
because they switch
you can't just be
areas.
like, okay, I'll see you here next week, you know, for your
Hmm.
doctor appointment. And then next week comes and they're like nowhere to be found. Like that's not, it's not that easy, you know? So when you tell someone like, oh yeah, you have court on the 25th, make sure you make it. Or, you know, I'll be here to pick you up and take you if you need to. They're
Yeah,
like, okay, yeah. And then,
especially when they find out that if they're going to be conserved, because that'll spread in the population. Don't show up to your fucking court date, or otherwise you might get conserved.
well, I mean,
So,
they might get conserved regardless if they show up or not.
well, if you can't find
Because
them, you can't conserve them.
here's the thing, I think you can though, because of like I could see them using that as a reason in and of itself to conserve them, you know?
Right.
And I think another thing that I saw was proposed, it's not related to the care court thing, but again, I think it's one of these things that's geared towards more swift and rapid action, is they're trying to change the 5150 criteria and like what's eligible for it. Um, and basically what they're trying to do is add refusal of medical assistance as something that you could get put on a 5150 for.
Okay. That makes
Um,
sense. I mean, that makes sense. The rest of it you're talking about, oh my God, you could just, like I said, it's so gray. The gray areas, you could just punch holes in it all day long, and you can spin it to be to a terrible thing, and that's what's going to happen.
yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell what's gonna happen. Like I understand the reasoning for it. You know, like I said, it's like the entire state is feeling the pressure of like homelessness. You know,
yeah,
I'd say it's probably like top two issues in California specifically.
yeah,
So like I understand, like they had to do something. And I mean, I honestly think I've always said that trying something is better than not doing anything.
yeah.
You know, if we try this and it's doesn't work, okay, but you know, we tried something.
But here's the thing, Lalo. The first thing I see is you said you pointed out the fact that, hey, homeless man number one or homeless woman number two, next Tuesday you have a court date. Okay, that's fine, and we're going to set up, say 10 this week, which is a, a low estimate of how many you're going to have to do because you have over 2,000 homeless people, and you're going to have to take care of them large chunks at a time if you're going to show any kind of progress. But here you got these 10, and like you said, Inyo County doesn't have any fucking money, doesn't have a roam team, doesn't have homeless, doesn't have anything, any resources to take this. 8 of these people don't show up, and suddenly Inyo County is going to lose $8,000 a day until they can get these people in. So even if it's like after 6 months, they go, oh, okay, care court didn't work. Is Inyo County going to get their fucking $250,000 back?
Nope.
No. So what this is another way. It's sucking money out of the counties. It's sucking money away from people who, and I'm not saying homeless people don't desperately need help, but a lot of people desperately need help in Inyo County. And you're just going to suck $250,000 out of them and then go, well, that didn't work. Sorry. And where did that money go?
Yeah.
That's a huge problem. You cannot punish people for, you can't punish a legislative body because they simply can't do what you ask them to do. That's like telling, if I told my wife, I need 50 push-ups out of you, and I need that today, and if you can't do that today, I'm going to fine you $1,000 a day until you can do 50 push-ups. She'll never be able to do that. So I'm just going to continue to suck money out of that until the county goes broke. That's not going to work, man. I mean, I can see it up to a point where you say, okay, let's put a warrant out on them because they didn't show up to court, and the next time you run into them, then we'll pick them up. But you can't say you go look for these people, and if you can't find them, that's $1,000 a day.
Yeah, and I mean, a while back, probably like 2 years ago, um, I was I was working, and like the nature of my team is like we like engage people that don't want services,
Right.
and I remember just riding like in the van one day, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, do you think there'll ever be like mandated um like services, for people? Kind of there's this other team that's in our department that kind of deals with that,
Mm-hmm.
but on a wide scale, And like a year and a half later, like they announced like this care court thing. So I think because even back then I thought like it gets kind of tricky when you like mandate um like treatment for people that don't want treatment.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
and it's kind of like I said, that is a gray area, because you are and you should be technically like allowed to refuse, medical treatment, refuse, any sort of treatment. It's a free country,
yeah.
If you don't want it, you shouldn't be forced to take it. Um, but at the same time, I think, um, I think part of the reason that they're doing it, or part of the way they're getting around that, is kind of using either addiction or like mental illness as almost like a scapegoat of like, well, this is why they're refusing, like they are sick, they are ill.
Yeah,
Um, so because of that, we are mandating this. It's almost like if you like you're in an accident and you're like chops off and you're like bleeding out, and they're like getting you in the ambulance and you're like, no, I don't want medical treatment.
right.
It's like, well, your leg's chopped off, you're gonna die,
Okay.
you know?
All
So,
right.
but I mean, even then, like I said, that they're trying to change the 5150 criteria. Like refusing medical treatment has been a thing for forever. They even call it like, oh, they left the hospital AMA, against medical advice.
Right.
Like that's just a thing. But now you're telling me if someone says that or tries to do that, they could get put on a hold. That's a little I wouldn't say concerning, but it's just very it kind of raises an eyebrow.
Well,
And again, I think
yeah.
these things will be more used. Like you're not gonna see like uh you know your average Joe like get put on a hold because he doesn't want to take his fucking like medicine or something, or he doesn't want certain like medical treatment. I think this is specifically geared towards uh, people with addiction and homeless individuals. And I
Yeah.
think that's the majority of the people that are going to
Is that going to be, but is
deal
that
with
going to
it.
be written into the legislation? Because if it's not written into the legislation, then we're talking about a slippery slope here where you keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away until suddenly it's like, yep, you have cancer. And yep, the pharmaceutical industry has lobbied to pass laws saying that you cannot go against your treatment. You can't refuse us anymore. If you're on a Xanax prescription and you tell your doctor, I don't want to be on Xanax anymore. Sorry. Because you think about how powerful the pharmaceutical industry is, and you think about how devious fucking people are who want that money. If you do not write into, this is for the homeless population only, then yeah, dude, you're talking about the slippery slope, and they will go after it. And it might take them 20 years to do it, but 20 years from now, we won't remember today when this happened. It's just this, as a culture comes in, and then more children come in, and they learn that you have to take your medicine. You're treated like a child your entire life. You will be conserved if you don't take your cancer treatment, and we will force it on you.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, one of the biggest issues with this is like I said, like the execution, because there is no like additional funding for like counties. So like, let's say a county does like a very good job at like doing this care court thing, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna have an influx of like people like on conservatorship, like a huge influx,
Yeah, and you got to pay conservators.
and you have to like be prepared for that huge influx of additional people that are conserved, and you have to pay for, like you said, the conservators. You have to set up, departments. So I think the execution of it is very poor. The idea of it is like, I would say it's decent. So we just kind of see how it.
Are we setting up mental institutions again?
Well, I mean, it always goes back to fucking Ronald Reagan. I think he's the reason we're here in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I worked in the mental health industry when he did that, and I helped let all those people go, man. I did it. I was part of that. So
I think you should be in jail if anything.
Well, I think Ronald Reagan should be on the nickel. So
in that case, we should get rid of the nickel.
Wow, man. I did not know about any of that. And now that opens up a whole new can of worms. Like you said, suddenly we're going to be locking people up again. And it's just a different name on a same fucking animal that we were doing in the 70s.
Well, I don't necessarily think that like mental like institutions are bad. I think just the way they were ran back then was bad.
Have you ever been in a mental institution, bro?
No, I mean, not as a
It's bad.
patient.
It's bad. Back the pre-Reagan era mental institutions were the ones I worked in. You could get PTSD from just working in those fucking places. They were, straight jackets and all kind. I've seen it all, man. And I don't know. I don't even know. Sometimes I tell myself, I'm like, okay, in order to solve homelessness, you just have to make it illegal and then deal with it from there. And then that just opens up this whole avenue of like, what do you mean illegal? Like DeSantis treats immigrants like, he flies them out of state, buses them out of state. And that's what Arizona does to an extent, gets rid of them. And certain cities will tell you, if you're a vagrant, if you're homeless, they'll simply tell you, do you have a place to go? No. Okay, you have a choice. You're going to get locked up for the evening, or you're going to get a free bus ticket. Now everybody's going to choose the bus ticket I don't want to get locked up. So we're just simply shuffling people around, like the homeless, we shuffle them around, and the immigrants, the illegal, I want to say illegal. The immigrants,
Undocumented.
undocumented, thank you. Undocumented people would just shuffle them around. It doesn't get rid of the problem. It just, they move to less restrictive areas, like Martha's Vineyard, like Bakersfield is a less restrictive area for the homeless people. So you're not solving the problem. You're just shuffling them around. So like I said, you have to do something drastic, and maybe care court is drastic enough that people will react, that governments will react.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm very interested to see how it plays out, you know. Um, we'll see
Drastic
if,
times call for drastic measures, right?
yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where, um, like you were mentioning earlier about, a lot of places, they'll give you like a choice of go to jail or leave pretty much.
Yeah.
But then what that does is that paints this false like illusion of, um, oh, like we don't have that issue here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I was
And
just, when you said that, I just thought of that. It's like we're no longer this country anymore. We're these pockets of politics. And it's like, well, we don't have that problem in Florida. Well, you're still part of the United States, and the United States has the problem, so you have the fucking problem.
and I mean, Florida does have that problem. All these red states, like they're poor, like they're really poor.
Yeah.
So they do have these problems. What they do is they just kick it over to the blue states and then point at the blue states and say, haha, look, you guys can't, uh, deal with homelessness. Look at us.
Yeah, we
We're
know how to
good.
deal with homelessness. We
So
send
that's
it to
because,
you.
yeah, because, blue states tend to be the states with more services, more, like compassion when it comes to treating homelessness. Whereas
Yeah.
red states, like there's some like counties and cities where it's like, it's illegal to be homeless pretty much,
hmm
you know?
Maricopa
Um,
County.
so
Maricopa
you
County
can't,
in Arizona.
like even Republicans, like, I mean, they do it all the time, but it's hard to like be honest with yourself. Like I understand like you won't be honest with like other people, but if you're like looking at this and you're being honest with yourself, like you can't tell me that's the way to solve it. Um,
But
homelessness.
yeah, there is so much anger in those red states. It, it's like, this is how we solve things here, and that's what they say. We throw them out. We kick them out. We bus them elsewhere. And like the death penalty, I mean, death penalty is big in red states. So you're looking at a hostility that you cannot. Isn't that part of the problem, though, Lalo? It's not just the homeless people that are fucking the problem. It's the non-homeless people that are also the problem, because they don't have the right attitude about how to deal with it. They want it taken care of right now. Take care of this. And if you don't take care of it, we'll find some draconian fucking measures to take care of the problem. Like you said, we'll send them to the Democratic run states, and then we'll blame those fucking states for the problems that we caused, and not take responsibility, and not be honest with themselves. And I think that's a huge problem here in the United States now, where we just don't look at we don't take an honest review of ourselves. And from that point, if we're dealing with that kind of deception with ourselves, how can we see the world through that veil of deception in a equitable way?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do.
And while that's happening, I was reading, while we have all these problems, and it's like the house is on fire, and nobody's doing anything except, pour a cup of water on the couch, man, because that's all we have. And like, there's war in Ukraine, and we just, I don't know if we distract ourselves, if we're being distracted. The Queen is dead. The war in Ukraine. There's a drought here. There's fires here. and it seems like we're just besieged with all these fucking problems. And if you cannot solve the little ones, how are you going to solve these big ones? You know?
Yeah. It's
And
go ahead.
then we're being lied to constantly. And the thing that I wanted to talk about today to you is I'm having these doubts about my beliefs now because I did what you told me to do a long time ago, and I've been doing it for a while. I watch MSNBC. I watch Meet the Press. I watch the California guy. I can't remember the name of the show right now, but I watch Fox. I watch the left. I watch the right. I watch the middle. I read all the fucking news, and each one has their, I guess, what would you call it? They have their truth. And the things that they say on Fox, some of those things are true. They're just spun to look bad. And then on the right, what what I'm seeing is all of a sudden I'm looking at my own views and I'm looking at what is really happening. And you say, okay, like in 1994, the State Department had to publish what's the World Military Expenditures thing. That's since 1994, so that's been almost 50 years, 48 years. Did you know in 2021 that Congress repealed that? And did you know in 2022 we will not ever again be able to see what the national defense is being spent on? They don't have to show us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can we solve, here's this issue over here of homelessness or high taxes or recession or impending doom that we look at every day, and the government doesn't have to tell us where our money's going anymore. So what I'm having trouble believing either side anymore, dude. I think we're being lied to in ways that are, and I'm not putting on my tin hat, Lalo. I'm not doing it. I'm just saying, when you look at the news and you go, why don't they have to tell me where my money's going anymore? Well, because Congress said. Now there's no oversight, no accountability, no transparency. And we're not talking about $20 here. We're talking about $777 billion, almost $1 trillion. And the reason that came out is because we're giving lots and lots of money to Ukraine, but they don't have to tell us where it's going. And they don't have to tell the American people. So we have so many fucking problems, and we're all lying to each other, and we're all divided. And here's this state sending fucking immigrants out, and here's this state bussing homeless people around, and no one's telling anybody the truth. And what do we do with that, dude? I mean, how can we be a united country again if we ever were? Because I don't know how, you got to look at history being spun differently. There's been problems since we started this thing, but how do we solve the little problems like 2,000 people being homeless in Bakersfield when the world is fucking on fire? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I wouldn't say it took me a while, but I've realized that when you have such a complex, not even just like society, but like, world in general,
Yeah.
like there's always going to be issues. Like you're never, for as like optimistic as, people want to be, like there's always going to be something that's detrimental to other people,
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, like knowing that and like accepting that, um, I'm able to like almost be more like realistic with expectations when it comes to like change and how it comes about.
Yeah.
Um,
Are your expectations low as mine?
um, I wouldn't say they're low. I would just say I understand how the system works, and I understand how, like, for the United States to be where like let's say I would, like if it was up to me where I would, make it be like when it comes to like how it runs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, I know that to get from here to there, it would take a long time in our current system,
Right.
Um, like, and honestly, I think that's the only route we have because, I mean, I think we're too far, like, advanced as a society to really, like, you're not gonna see no United States like revolution in 2022
No.
or anytime in the near future.
No.
Revolutions are hard to come by when it comes to like advanced societies nowadays.
Right.
Um, so we really do only have like our current like democratic system to kind of enact change, but that system is built for very slow change. You know, um,
Yeah, I know.
and I mean, I don't and I've said it before too. Like Republicans and Democrats, when it comes to like politicians, they're literally like very close to each other. They're like the same side, two different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
like
Definitely.
I don't trust any Republican, and I don't trust most Democrats. Um,
You got to trust Liz Cheney. Come on.
well, I understand like her.
I mean, as a politician, you got to say, okay, I trust Liz Cheney as a politician. She's not pulling any punches. And
But see, Liz Cheney is painted in a good picture because she's like, um, like going against the grain or whatever, or like
right.
anti-Trump. But at the end of the day, like she's still Republican.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And see, that takes me back to that thing, dude, where I was saying if I can't trust anybody or only a few, it's like saying my house is on fire. What you're saying is this: the system's built to change slowly. Okay, that's true. What if the fire department was built the same fucking way, dude? What if all fire trucks had um, chain brakes on them? They can only go 10 miles an hour. My house on fire. Okay, dude, we'll be there in 45 minutes because that's the way the system works. The house is on fire here, man, and a government that's got all these brakes on it so it can't change quickly. It the house is going to burn down, bro. I mean, that's all there is to it, unless we can take care of it.
and you know what? There can be like swift change, um, but like the way politics is ran today prevents that like completely.
Yeah,
Especially with like the bipartisanship. Like people will vote no or yes on things, not even based on what that bill is, but more based on like politics, like personal
yeah.
politics.
Yeah, and personal investments
Right.
that's the way that looks because here's a group of politicians and there's a lot of them who are invested in Lockheed Martin, who are invested in the planes and the bombs and the tanks and the ammunition that's going overseas. Do you think they want the war in Ukraine to stop? Do you think they even give a fuck about the war in Ukraine other than Lockheed Martin stock went up? So when the vote comes down to, hey, let's repeal this national defense authorization, or let's inside the National Defense Authorization Act, let's repeal that world military expenditures thing. Okay, well, I don't think we should do that, Congressman. I think we should, Congressman, because I'm invested and I'll have you thrown out. I'm more powerful than you. So when you have politicians who are more powerful than other politicians, then you have a real fucking problem, dude. And we have a real problem here.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think like if the people that like wrote the Constitution saw how government ran today, um, like I don't think they even for 1 second like foresaw like how things work now, you know, when it comes to
Yeah.
like lobbying and like special interests and all that.
Yeah.
To me,
So
that probably didn't even like go through their head. And
no,
I'm sure if
how
it did, they would have like put measures in place to like kind of curb that, you know?
if they could have foreseen the future, our Constitution would be about 10,000 pages.
Yeah.
And
And
our
see, that's,
Supreme Court would be 70 people, not,
yeah. And that's one of the things I've always said, like the Constitution, there's two types of, I guess, constitutionalists. Um, there's like the original constitutionalist, you know, like
Yeah.
this is what it says in the Constitution. If it's not in here, blah, blah. And then, which I think that's the dumbest way to like think when it comes to like government, because that paper was written, you know, 250 years ago.
Right.
There's no way they could have foreseen anything and everything that's whatever happened. And then there's the other people that kind of see it as like a living document, you know, that should change and that should adapt. And it has, you know, that's what amendments are. They're amendments to the Constitution.
Yeah.
That just proves the point that they didn't think of everything. And I mean, it's not their fault. Like, you know, it's 250 years ago. If I asked you right now, like to think of any issue that would come up 250 years from now, there's no way you'd be able to do that, you know?
I know. It's like, well, somebody taps John Hancock on the shoulder and says, "Hey man, what are we going to do when all the congressmen invest in the stock market?" And he's like,
He's like,
"What?"
what the fuck's a stock market?
Exactly.
So it's like the Constitution should be viewed as a living document, and it should be amended, and it should be changed. And it should be changed quite regularly based on the way we are advancing as a society, you know?
Yeah, a constitutional convention every 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Let's look at it like that. And then that way, 25 years ago, when homelessness was beginning to become a problem, well, you know what? We have like 1,000 homeless people in the United States. What we need to do is let's make it a constitutional amendment that you're not allowed to be homeless. We have to provide you a home, you know, and we have to take care of people, but it's every fucking politician for himself right now, and the fallout is us. And when you hide $777 billion, when you hide $1 trillion worth of money, and the reason that it got taken out was in the last year, they were beginning to see that private interests were taking that money and not doing anything with it towards national defense. So how much of it is going towards national defense and how much of it is lining somebody's pockets?
Yeah.
But we can't see that anymore. We're not allowed to see that.
And I bet you that passed like overwhelmingly, you know?
It's buried in the National Defense Authorization Act. Of course everybody voted for it. It's the defense budget. And there's a little addendum in the defense budget saying, well, we're not going to publish that world military expenditures and arms transitions thing anymore. And probably no one even fucking read it. And only a few people wanted it in there, and they got what they wanted. Without, because did you know it? I didn't know it until I'm reading some, obscure fucking website that and you're like, holy shit, they just hid $777 billion and no one said a fucking dick about it. So, but we're well trained, man. We are well trained to just swallow whatever they hand us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We are. And the thing is we are so well trained. Liz Truss was on one of those, what do you call them, public meeting forums, and they were interviewing the new prime minister, and they asked her the question, if Russia launches nuclear weapons, what would you do? And she said, well, of course I would launch back without hesitation. And the crowd erupted in like, oh, yay, yay, thank God she's here and she's strong. It's like, Motherfucker, you are clapping at your own demise. You are so well trained that you're not thinking about your own life as much as you're thinking about politics and the way it runs and the way we should love our country and the way we should protect our country. You just obliterated yourself. It's like it's not a fucking football game and somebody scored a touchdown. Yay, touchdown. It's yay, global annihilation. And that's how well trained we are. And that's sad, man, that we don't think. We have stopped thinking and all we do is react. And that we could take this all the way back to the beginning of the podcast. We have stopped thinking empathetically about people, and we are simply reacting to the homeless person laying on the sidewalk. It has nothing to do with the homeless person on the sidewalk as much as it has to do with I'm uncomfortable because that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very reactionary.
Yeah.
And that's what politics are for the most part, reactionary politics. And I would agree that we're very like, I think the way a lot of us view, like, I guess, not just politics, but like how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
We see it like in a very like simplistic lens. Because I mean, it is a complicated like thing to navigate, like politics and, world issues. These are very like complex things, and we only see like the very tip of them, and we base our entire like judgment, our entire like, stance on this, very small piece of what we actually see and of what actually is going on.
Yeah.
And when we do that, or when people do that, it's like it's easy to like change minds, and it's easy to like sway people a certain way, because you just have to show them this one thing that makes them think this one thing,
Oh yeah, and you want a good example of that? Here, man. We've got everybody who wants to protect the Ukraine because gas prices are high. Well, that's not why gas prices are high. Well, that's what you're telling me. Gas prices are high because of Putin. Okay. So I have this little piece of information and it's false to begin with. And then you don't tell me that $777 billion is being hidden. And you don't tell me that our congressmen are invested in the stock market. And you don't tell me that Putin and Zelensky were going to come to the table, but Boris, whatever his fucking name was, the UK talked Zelensky out of it. There's all kinds of things that are happening behind the scenes, and the only thing the American people know is fucking gas is expensive. Let's keep fighting. So we never have enough information, dude. We never have enough information to make an informed decision anymore. And the funny thing is, we have more information at our fingertips now than we ever have in history. But it's so...
It's
cloudy, right? It's a good word. It's like we can't see the blue sky for the clouds anymore. So we can't make decisions anymore, Lalo. We can't make informed decisions anymore unless we dig in. And as soon as you dig in and start saying, well, the National Defense Authorization Act and Zelensky and Putin and the gas price, and you become a fucking conspiracy theorist almost immediately, because that's the way we're trained to think. If you complicate it, you're a conspiracy theorist, because all these problems are easily solved. That's what they tell me. Like homelessness is easily solved. Well, my name's Lalo and I work with the homeless, and here's the care court, and Lalo, you're making it difficult. Just get them off the street. Well, how do you how do you propose that I do that? I don't have a proposal. That's up to you. So we have no information. We have no ideas. We simply sit back and digest the media that we are offered to us, and we make decisions based on media that's either skewed, not true, or it's true, but it's not being presented to me like the truth that it needs to be presented. So what do you propose now?
Yeah, it's like a maze that we have to navigate through.
Yeah.
Except the people navigating don't know what a maze is. You know,
They don't know they're in a
they're
maze.
they're just like walking like forever.
It's
No, but I
like
mean,
that.
yeah, it's a very like the picture painted is very it's easy to look at it and be like, oh yeah, like we're fucked, you know?
Yeah.
Um but I've always just tried to be like optimistic because I do
Right.
see a lot of like good, good change and positive change.
Yeah.
Um and I know, like I said, I know these battles like take generations sometimes, and
Yeah.
and I know that because we've seen it happen. You tell me if you were to ask um, like a slave back in like the 1800s, or not even ask them, but if you were to tell them like, hey, you know, one day, uh, you know, a black person's gonna be president, like even like just imagine yourself back then, and then like if someone was to tell you that, like that would not even register as like the smallest possibility.
Right. Right. Because
But it
first of all,
happened.
you'd have to say, well, you're going to need 1 1/3 people, 1 1/3 of us, because we're only worth 2/3 per person right now.
Right. And it's like that's how, and I mean it happened, It's
It
not
did.
but it took, 250 years.
And a civil war.
So it's like it's
Yeah.
one of those things where like I know like big change is possible, but big change is not possible overnight, you know, unless you have like a revolution or some shit like that. And like I said, that's not gonna happen anytime soon. At least not here. The United
Well,
States is too, I guess, advanced, progressed to revolt. We can't all just. I mean, well, I mean, technically we can. It already happened, like storm the Capitol. But um, even then, like, it's just that's an avenue that's not really a possibility. Um, so you kind of have to just go down the route of using the system we have in place, because with the system we have in place it is possible to make those big leaps and changes.
right.
um but to get there you need the right people at the top, and to get the right people at the top, that's what takes a long time, because
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
lifetime politicians, because of special interests. You have that's why it's slow. Like the system is designed itself to be um like slow, but not this slow.
Right.
Like there's checks and balances, there's committees, there's procedures when it comes to passing a law, and it has to go through Congress and through the president and all this. Like that's meant to take time. That's normal. But people or politicians have taken that and like stretched it out tenfold,
Hmm.
to where they filibuster for 24 hours straight reading the fucking dictionary or reading fucking Dr. Seuss.
Right.
Or they just don't bring bills up, um, like up for a vote because, oh, well, we're a Republican Congress, but the president's Democratic. So we're not going to pass anything because then it looks like he passed
Right. We
stuff,
have to stonewall the
and it doesn't
president.
help that doesn't help us.
And
So it's
then,
things like
yeah.
that kind of,
And then nothing happens. You get a Democratic Congress and a Republican president, and it keeps flip-flopping back and forth where nothing ever gets done. And it seems like even when the legislative and the judicial and everything is lined up for Democrats or Republicans, nothing gets done then either because it's all too slow. It's really sad, dude. It's sad because a lot of people are suffering right now. And a lot of people are homeless, and a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of people are not eating so they can put gas in the car so they can go to a job that they fucking hate and live in a house that they don't like. You know, there's a lot of, I'm surprised there's not more civil unrest. And I'm not saying that from a, you know, psycho point of view, and I'm not being, like I said, I'm not putting on my tin hat, but when you talk to the average person, they're not happy. Nobody's happy. And instead of anger, it's mental illness. Now everybody's, you know, pharmaceutical companies got 60% of us on some sort of pill. I think that the next change it's got to be an upheaval, dude, like a radical something has to change situation. Like the president in 1864 or 5 freed the slaves. That was a radical act to make change. And it worked. It caused a civil war, but it worked. You know, you got your 150 years later, you got your president. So in 150 years, like you said, they're telling, what can you come up with now that's going to be relevant in 150 years?
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Maybe we should stop spinning the future as this, you know, negative things are doom and gloom, and let's start spinning a closer future. Hey, if we get some homeless people off the street, this will happen to, and if we take pharmaceutical companies down, which Biden's claiming that whole, we beat the pharmaceutical industry, you know, he's yelling it into the microphone. It's like, be careful, man, you shit your pants here because you didn't do anything. What you did, you know, we beat the pharmaceutical companies. In 2025, they're going to lower the cost of 10 drugs. And it's like, excuse me? That's a victory? And they get to choose the drugs? And it doesn't, I think in 2025, it's 10, in 2027 or 8, it's 15 drugs, and then it moves to 20 drugs 10 years from now. So 20 drugs, but that doesn't cover any new drugs, like say, I don't know, vaccines. You see what I'm saying? The pharmaceutical industry didn't get hurt at all. So maybe if we really clamped down and said to the fuel companies, no more, to the pharmaceutical industry, no more. You're not going to fucking gouge the American people and put some money back in people's pockets and make people have faith in the government again instead of Nancy Pelosi's like knee deep in Exxon stock. and Pelosi's knee deep in the pharmaceutical industries and knee deep in the fucking war machine. And if we stop having the National Defense Authorization Act be 8,000 pages so no one knows what the fuck is in it. We need to stop complicating stuff so much and stop spinning everything in a negative way and start taking care of issues that can be taken care of, because you could easily kick the money out of the pharmaceutical industry. You could say no more politicians can take a single dollar from any of these corporations and make a big list of it. Things will change, bro, right now.
Yeah, it's almost like it's about perception, you know, and how we approach these issues. Because at the end of the day, like, they're here whether we want them or not, you know?
Yep.
Like, we have to deal with them regardless. So it's about how we view them and how we deal with them that is going to determine, like, where we go from here.
And where do we go from here? I think I'm going to the store. And then I'm going to go work out. And then I'm going to watch
football
movies
for the next 8 hours.
I watched college football yesterday for like 6 while I was working out.
I never got in. It's really hard for me to get into college football.
Dude,
because to me, it's like, it's boring.
Really?
Like, college football is very like there's no parity in it. Like all these teams are playing. It's always like 45-0 or like 45-7, except for like those few games where like the good team plays the other good team.
Yeah, I agree because like Nebraska got blown out yesterday, like 49-14,
And like, how is that? I mean, if you're a Nebraska fan, I guess that's fun. But like,
but I
if you're just
watched
like a casual watcher,
yeah,
like that to me, that's
but I
terrible.
watched two small schools like Ole Miss and Tulane or something yesterday, and it fucking dude, it was back and forth. It like I think it ended up like 28-26, and the last play was a Hail Mary, and it can be
Yeah, but
pretty
see, that's like
good.
every NFL game. Like most NFL games are close, even like a good team versus a bad team. Most college football games are not close. They're blowouts.
Yeah. Well,
Even there'll be blowouts even with the two good teams. I've seen Alabama get blown out.
oh yeah, definitely. It but when you're one or two players not being on their game and you're done. You can't replace them.
Yeah, it's always been like I don't know anything about college football to be
Well, you
honest.
should you should sit down and watch one of
And
those
they don't pay their players, so
small schools.
they should pay the players. Then I'll start watching.
Well, I we could talk about that during a podcast because I don't think they should because
You
that's for
don't
the
think?
it's for the love of the game at that point.
Well, tell that to the schools making billions of dollars.
Well,
You can't make billions of dollars off people and then tell them we're not gonna pay you because you're doing it for the love of the game. I love public service. Don't mean they're not gonna pay me at my job.
how many football players are on the football team that aren't paying tuition?
I would say, I mean, I don't know how many scholarships each school has, but I mean, at least half maybe.
Okay, then half of them are getting paid.
Well, no, because they're all contributing. It
That's
doesn't
what I
matter
was,
if you play, like, if you're the starter or not. Like, you should get
well,
paid.
high schools make money off of football games. Should we pay high school players too?
High schools don't make billions of dollars,
But
though.
they still make tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars at the right schools when you fill up the stands every season, every game, and everybody's paying money to be there and concession stands and shirts are being sold. So schools are making fucking money at the high school level. Should we kick some of that money back down to the players?
Mm, no, because I think the amount really matters. Like, you can't really compare $10,000 to like $3 billion, especially at these bigger schools.
Ole Miss ain't making $1 billion.
Ole Miss is a big school.
Oh, well, okay.
That's where Eli Manning's from. I know that much.
Cal State, Fullerton,
Do they even
Bakersfield
have a football
College.
team?
Exactly. These small schools. Let's. I don't know any of the
But
small
even
schools that
these
have
even
football
these small
teams.
schools make way more money compared to any high school.
I'll give you that, but I'm still saying I don't think you should be paid until you're a professional athlete.
And for a lot of people, like this is their like I guess their peak,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Because I mean, only like 250 people a year make it to the NFL,
Right. Right.
and there's like tens of thousands of college football players I can imagine
Uh,
in the country.
oh yeah.
I don't know. That just seems like intrinsically like corrupt. Like you're making billions of dollars, like with a B,
Right.
and it's like peanuts compared to.
What is that going to do? How is that going to is that going to solve any problems? Is
Yeah, there's
that
like kids that are fucking starving during the week and then make the school billions of dollars on the weekend. Like to me, I actually knew this guy. He went to high school with me. His name was Silas. He was a running back for Baylor, and he, I don't know if he had a scholarship or if he was walk on, but he played at Baylor, right? And he was homeless like he didn't have a place to stay, and one of his friends was like, "Hey, you can stay with me for like the week. You know, you crash on my couch." And the NCAA banned him from playing football because he accepted like a gift. They considered that a gift, and he was banned from playing football for Baylor because this dude was homeless.
Right.
How much
Right.
money do you think Baylor makes a year with their football program?
Millions. Easily.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
come
see your
on.
point, but I
They can't. Someone can't even buy you lunch.
well, then you could change the rules
Yeah,
to
the rule should be you should get paid.
how about will uh, football players all get scholarships and dorm rooms and food? You're well taken care of here.
That's. I still don't think that's enough. It's
Why?
billions. It's billions of dollars,
I get it. I
and you're
understand what you
putting your
mean,
body on the line
but
every
it's
single
not
week.
just college football that's making billions and not giving back to the people that are making it for them.
Well, I didn't say that was the case.
It's everything is making money and people are being taken advantage of.
Yeah, but I'm not saying they shouldn't. I would also advocate for those other people.
We're just going to change everything, man. No more billionaires. Sorry. You don't get to be a billionaire. You have to give that shit back. I would like that. I would like that. I can see if you're going to go across the board and make everything equitable. Yes, those football players need paid and basketball players need paid and your baseball players need paid and you need to stop homelessness. And if we could take away the trillions of dollars that are in the hands of a handful of people, we could solve all the fucking problems. But is that fair to the handful of people? And then you've got that thing, what's good for the most people? And then we go back to our beginning where we're talking about care court and what's good for most people. Now we have situations. This is all ethics, man.
Yeah,
We
politics
shouldn't
is
have money.
ethics.
Politics is ethics. We should talk about this football thing. You could school me a little bit.
I mean, it's not really so much about football as much as it is about like
Parity, equity,
yeah.
fairness. Yeah, I know I played football for up until my junior year, from fourth grade up to my junior year. My knees are shot. I got all kinds of problems from that. I got a thumb that pops weird, because I broke it in a football helmet in 1977. So, and I'm not saying I need, to be paid, but I'm saying I did give up a lot for the love of the game. I loved to play football, and the injuries that's just part of the game to me. I wish I broke my leg pretty badly, so couldn't play anymore. But I don't think, I don't, I don't want to get paid for it. I loved it too much. That takes
I
away from
mean,
it.
just because you love it don't mean you, you can't get paid.
Well, no, I understand that. It just, when you hand me a paycheck, it changes the way I think about things. It changes the way I think about the game. Now the game isn't just for the love of the sport. I'm getting paid. I'm gonna play differently now. Because if I get paid here and I take it easy, I can get paid more in the future. Or if I don't hurt myself. Football is like gladiators to me, man. Those guys are out there killing themselves, and maybe they should get paid, but I think it would just change the game radically to pay college sports.
I mean, NFL players get paid, and I
Yeah,
wouldn't say that's like a
that's
radical change.
that's a professional.
But like what, like intrinsically speaking, what's the difference? Like they're both playing football at a high level.
Yeah, yeah. I'll think about it. We'll come back to it.
Think of your argument.
Think of my argument.
Prepare it.
I will come up with a really evil argument about football players aren't worth anything. Entertain me for free.
I mean, it's free to you.
It's free to me. All right. All right, man. I got to roll.
All right.
Thank you, brother. That was another good one. I love, I hate that we have to talk about politics all the time, but that's what this whole thing comes down to. It's this whole ethical, moral dilemmas that we all look at, and we hire these people with our vote, and then they pay themselves with their investments, and they should be taking care of this, but they're not. They're not. They're just in it for themselves. So let's see what the care court does. We'll come back and talk about it 5 years from now when everybody is imprisoned. We'll talk about the state of Montana, who's conserved everyone. So there you go. All right. As always, it's an hour and 15 minutes of saying things that could be completely fucking wrong, and that's fine. That's why we're here, man. So for the week, this has been Bob.
And Lalo.
And man, this is the Thoroughly Wrong Project. And dude, I will see you next week.
Later, man.
Later. You have now experienced the Thoroughly Wrong Project with your podcast hosts, Lalo and Bob. We can now be found on Pandora Radio, Apple Podcasts, Podium Podcast, or by searching The Thoroughly Wrong Project to locate our YouTube channel. You can contact us directly by email at thoroughly-wrong@gmail.com, or just leave a comment on any of our platforms. Until next time, thanks for spending your valuable time with us, and remember, always speak up and never be afraid to be thoroughly wrong.